Man, it's crazy to think that this camera has been out for 6 months. The BlackMagic Pocket Cinema Camera 6K is a beast, and it's so small. I was lucky enough to get it right when it first came out, so I'm pretty used to it. I also had the 4K before it, which is, basically the same camera. So I'm very used to the quirks and features, and I've used this pretty much every single day since it's been out. Now, when you get this camera, of course, the biggest complaint with it is that you need to kind of rig it out to be able to work in a real work environment. And for the most part, that is true. And that's what I've done here. This setup here works exactly the way I want it, and it is perfect for what I do. So my work is basically this. I make YouTube videos for a living, whether it's on this channel or my day job, which is the John Rettinger channel. So this kit that I put together is what I use for pretty much filming every video here. And then on the John Rettinger channel, we use this exact same kit as our B cam alongside our Ursa Mini 4.6K. Now, what those shoots entail is basically this, so studio stuff where everything is controlled and we can dial everything in, but a lot of travel. So when I travel, I wanna make sure I have excellent quality, but in a small package that I can actually take with me. And honestly, there's not much to this kit. One of the fears when picking up the 6K is that you're gonna have to rig it out and buy a ton of extra stuff, and it's gonna equal or exceed the cost of the camera itself. And in my case, I haven't really had to do that. The one thing that I knew I had to fix was the battery life. It comes with Canon batteries, which are great because I have a ton of them and you can kind of just swap them out, but the battery life is not good. So instead I went with a V-mount option, but this is kind of a custom option that works specifically for this camera. So it has a mount where you can mount it with just a 1/4-20 on the bottom of your camera, and then it has a dummy Canon battery that goes into the camera and you just plug it in and power it off of that. But what I love about this battery is that it is a V-mount. So if I ever need to put it on the back of the Ursa or power my light with it or anything that you would normally use a V-mount battery for, this still doubles as that. But when I want to actually use it on the Pocket, it still stays very compact because I can attach it right below. I've used this battery a ton in the field, here in the studio, and I can pretty much say it will last 3 hours consistently. If you turn on the camera, you can pretty much leave it on throughout your entire shoot and you will be good. That's one of the beauties of having one of these large batteries, and I think this particular one is a must. Now, the only other thing I really have here is a cage from Small Rig, and that also has the SSD mount on top. I went with the half cage because, I didn't really need the rest of the cage on the other side, and I kind of like having the regular grip there. But there are occasions where I do want to mount something to the side of the camera, and this lets me do that very easily, and it's affordable. And having that SSD mount there is a game changer. That's one of my favorite things about this camera, is shooting to SSDs, so I don't have to transfer. Everything's already in high res, ready to go. I just plug it in my computer and start editing. That's pretty much the only way I record on this camera, and I've never had it fail, never had it not work. It is one of the best features of this camera. I think the biggest thing I appreciate after all these months is having the native EF mount. I have Canon lenses, that's what I shoot with. When I had the Pocket 4K, I used a speed booster and it worked fine. But having that native mount just, leaves one less thing to fail. And my go-to lens on this camera is the Canon 24-105. The image stabilization paired with the kind of heftiness of the camera gives you really smooth movements, and that 24-105 range means I can pretty much cover anything I'm shooting. The biggest surprise after all these months is that that's all I've had to do to the camera to get it to work perfectly for me. I was fully expecting to have to buy more things to make this camera work, and for the most part, that's just not the case. Now, if you're working in more of a studio setting where you have more crew, more operators on a camera, someone to pull focus or someone to monitor, then yeah, you're gonna want to attach more things to your camera. But I'm more of a one-man band and I don't really need all of that stuff. I could see this kit getting expanded and becoming bigger, but again, for the work I'm doing, this works perfectly. One of the features I was expecting to use all the time that I just don't is the 6K. I don't shoot in 6K hardly ever. I can count on one hand how many times I've shot a video in 6K. And the main reason is because BlackMagic RAW. I edit in Final Cut Pro, I'm very good at it, I'm fast, and I still just haven't needed to make the switch over to Resolve, and the 6K resolution in BlackMagic RAW just isn't enough of a reason to make that switch just yet. But the times that I have used it and have needed it, having RAW and having that resolution comes in handy. And it's something that you can't really find in a camera this small and this cheap. That's kind of what I've grown to love about this camera. It gives me options, but I didn't have to break the bank to actually get it. And for the most part, if I didn't tell you what camera I was filming on, you wouldn't necessarily know that this wasn't an Ursa or something that cost twice or triple the amount. Now, the one thing that I wish this had that it doesn't is a better form of autofocus. The focus that it has now works for a situation like this where I'm sitting here, I can make it focus on my face and I just don't move. It works fine, but having some form of continuous autofocus would be excellent. I know it's not necessarily that kind of camera, but this is kind of marketed towards people like me who are a one-man band, and having autofocus would just be very helpful. But really, that's about it. It has been an uneventful 6 months, but when you have a camera that you rely on, that's exactly what you want. You want it to work the way you expect and not give you any issues, and I have not had a single issue with this camera. So if you're in the market for a camera like this, I think definitely give it a try. You don't have to rig it out as much as you might think. You can start small and go from there. But the quality that you get, it's unbeatable.